What is the Charlotte Mason method all about? What is your Charlotte Mason story? Hi, I'm Gina, and I'm a homeschooling mother of four, or a homeschooling nanay of four. My children's ages are 12, 10, 8, and 5 years old. We're based here in Manila, Philippines, and we've been homeschooling using the Charlotte Mason from the beginning. I also started Our Living Learning. It is where we share stories. It is where we conduct classes for both parents and children. And we also provide resources to help support families in their journey of living learning. I am also the directress of a homeschool provider, specifically catering to families using the Charlotte Mason method. And our homeschool provider is called Living Learning Homeschool. So welcome to our first ever episode of Our Living Learning video podcast or video cast. The plan is we will be having CM or Charlotte Mason mini talks or CM mini talks. We will be focusing on one aspect of Charlotte Mason, Mason's principles or method, and maybe how we can make it real in our day-to-day. How will we practice it in our day-to-day? We will also be inviting other parents who are also using the Charlotte Mason to share their stories and how they do it. How do you do narration? What's your favorite book? How do you teach science? How do you teach math? So all these things we hope to tackle and make it more practical for those who are trying to understand the Charlotte Mason method. But first of all, maybe I should share my story first. How did I start my homeschool journey? And how did I meet Charlotte Mason? And why did I choose her? So even before I got married, I already knew that I wanted to homeschool my children. So even before I got married, I was already looking at blogs, at articles about homeschooling. But the problem was I was specifically focusing on lesson plans, on how they did things, on what they presented to the child. I did not focus on the why behind things. I did not focus on the reason behind things. And so I thought it was just a matter of buying all the best out there, the most colorful probably workbook, or maybe the most popular lesson plan, and implement it at home. And I said, oh, I could do that. I could hack that. And so when my eldest was already 3 years old, I was now prepared to give him his first preschool lesson. And I remember printing out a lesson plan from this very, very popular website back then. So it's all laid out, what to do on day 1 and day 2 and day 3 for each subject. So I think it was a letter of the week. The letter for the week for that was A. So everything that we were supposed to do during that day was connected to A. And all the craft materials I had to prepare, I had to cut things, make shapes, everything. And I don't know why, but I was so tired just preparing for that one lesson. But then I said, well, this is it. This is homeschooling. I should be doing this. This is my responsibility. And so I pushed on. And the following day, I laid out all the stuff on the table in our dining room. And I was about to explain it to my 3-year-old. I explained to him that this is our first day of homeschooling. And so we are now ready to homeschool and we are ready to learn. Okay, sorry, it's funny, right? But yeah, that's how I started. And when I did present it to him, he just looked at me and left. Yep. Maybe he was not developmentally ready to just sit and listen to a speech from his mom explaining the letter A. I don't know. Well, definitely he's not ready developmentally to sit down and do formal lessons. I believe in that, and that's a total mistake. That's one reason. And maybe the mistake was the atmosphere of the place. Maybe the dining table or the place itself was not conducive to learning, or maybe I didn't know how to teach. Maybe I'm just not I'm not prepared for this. Maybe this is not the thing that I should be doing. But whatever the reason was, I know bottom line, I knew that there should be a better way to learn, a better way to teach, a more natural way to teach. It shouldn't feel like a job. I mean, it is work, but there should be joy in it. That's how I felt about it. And I knew I had to search for that kind of homeschooling. And so I decided to just throw that lesson plan. I went to the library. We were living back then in Santa Clara, California. And I went to the library, and that whole aisle about education, I got all the books. I remember, I think I would always borrow books, tons of books, and I always would have a big bag just to get all those books home. But this time my focus was not on the how-tos or what to do, but my focus was more on the why behind learning, why the whys behind teaching. And so I zoomed in on methods. I was exposed to a lot of philosophies. I was able to search about a lot of methods, from Montessori to Waldorf to unschooling to traditional method, and classical. I was drawn initially to the classical method. I read almost all the stuff under the classical method. But I thought that was it, until I met Charlotte Mason. Until I saw the books explaining the reasons behind the Charlotte Mason method, the philosophy behind her method. One of the books that I've read, the first book that I read actually about Charlotte Mason, was this. It's So For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. I'm not sure how you say it. Macaulay. So Susan Schaefer Macaulay. And this book changed everything for me. It changed my perspective about homeschooling, about education, not just about homeschooling, actually about a lifestyle. And it really got me excited. And maybe I could share a few things that struck me why I chose the Charlotte Mason. First of all, I was struck with the idea that in homeschooling, or even in the lifestyle, there should not be a separation between your spiritual life and your academic life or homeschool life or life. That it all should be in one. The reason why it struck me is because I was exposed, I saw a lot of lesson plans that somehow separated it. It was not a whole thing. And more about that in our next episodes. But that was one reason. I saw the more natural way of learning the scriptures. I saw a more natural way of learning altogether. Another thing that struck me was that when she said that knowledge should not come from the educator or the parent, and I said, what? I don't need to know everything. Because the idea of a Charlotte Mason method is that you are merely a presenter, you are a co-learner, and as you present, the knowledge ought to be coming from the books themselves, and you facilitate this by pre-reading these books. But the discussion will be more of a discussion rather than a sermon, rather than a teaching, the usual teaching way that we've been exposed to. It's a dialogue. And that excited me because I was just starting my journey as a homeschooling mom. I don't know everything, right? But slowly I understood. When I saw that, I said, wow, that took off the burden from me that I didn't need to know everything. Another thing is that struck me is the use of living books. Charlotte Mason, the one of the biggest thing about the Charlotte Mason method is that they don't use textbooks except for math. Okay, math in itself is a living language. So apart from that, all the other books, we use living books. Rather than snippets about history, focusing more on memorizing the dates, the events. It's all fragments about history, fragments about science, and never as a whole, because it's been pre-digested already in these textbooks. Instead of textbooks, we use living books, and that got me excited. So one thing about living books, and we will tackle more in the future, but one thing about it is that the writer of a living book is very passionate about what he's talking about. And you get a glimpse really of what is happening either in that time period, about a person's life, about a scientific discovery, and it will affect the way you learn, because it is not fragmented, it is not pre-digested. And after using living books for almost a decade now, I can't go back to a textbook anymore. But it's been a lovely experience. Another thing that struck me also is the way science was taught. Just like living books, Charlotte Mason viewed science probably not as fragmented, not based on memory work or pre-digested information in a science textbook, but first, initially, especially in the early years, is to be exposed to real science, which is what? Nature. I was not really into the outdoors before, but because of Charlotte Mason, I trusted her when she said that it is the first exposure to science, it is the best exposure to science. And so we focused on nature study, being outdoors, studying, observing. And as I went along and saw the progress, the scientific mind being built just through this way of learning science initially, now that my child is already in grade 6 and seeing the books that he's now reading on top of nature study, I now see a person, a child. I see my children loving science and actually understanding it. It is not far-fetched. It is something real, because the context of learning science made it real for them through nature study and through living books. So those are just a few things that struck me and made me decide that I want this. And so I read on and implemented one aspect, one principle of Charlotte Mason at the time. And I tried to focus on it and tried to also change my habits as a mother. And eventually, and now, we're here. Almost 10 years after, and I still love learning along with them. So maybe you could tell me your story. What is your story? How did you meet Charlotte Mason? Or why are you curious about Charlotte Mason? What are the aspects about her method that you particularly love, or what struck you? Share your thoughts and share your story in the comments below. Or maybe not even what struck you, but maybe you could also share what are you questioning about the Charlotte Mason method? What is it that's making you second guess her method? Because maybe that question will lead to an answer that will help you. So I highly suggest that you do that. Share one aspect here in the comments somewhere here. Or maybe share it to a friend, and let it be a start of a good conversation. So that is my story. So there you have it, our first episode of our Living Learning video podcast. Hope you could join us next time. Bye!